Okay, today we're going to do a new exercise or new project where we are going to draw the end of a pencil. We're not going to draw it to scale. In other words, we're not going to draw just a pencil. We're going to draw just the end of this pencil. And when we do this, we're only going to draw it, say down to the hardness. Now, this happens to be a number 2 pencil. When you draw this, I want you to think about what this pencil actually looks like and draw what you see. I know you know about pencils. Let's try not to draw what you know, but draw what you actually see. So this is going to be an exercise in paying attention and focusing. Okay. Now, when I set this pencil down in an orientation that allows me to see a little bit of the eraser, the end of the eraser, and the rest of the shadow, and I can see the top, this side where the number 2 is, and a little bit of the bottom edge. A sample. I've actually taken a picture of this, at least the orientation I'd like to see. And we'll zoom in on this just a little. So I want you to orient yours, if you want to follow my example, to look something like this. I have a little bit of shadow down here. We're not going to worry about the shadows that are cast on the pencil, or on the paper rather. We're just going to draw the pencil itself. So don't worry about that. Notice the end of the pencil is where the eraser is kind of dark, and this round part here, it's looks like it's a little bit shadowed too. Then our metal, I want you to notice that even though we know this metal here has straight edges, when we look at it at an angle, there's a curve here. And if we would imagine this curve going all the way through, it would create an oval. In fact, that's what the end of this eraser does, is create an oval. Then each of the subsequent lines for the crimping are a continuation of that same oval. So that's one of the things we're going to try to duplicate to make this pencil look believable. Okay, let's get started. Well, first thing I want to do is try to make sure this fits, so I need to get the scale right. I'm going to try to consider that this pencil, and I'll use my other pencil to help me measure. This pencil, if I use this to measure its width, is about that wide. And if I measure its length, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 will get me down to the number 2. So I need to make this pencil area, or drawn area, about 2 by 4. Well, I'm going to use a ruler to do that. And if I use 2 inches for the width of my pencil, that would be, from here to here. Now, I'm making very faint dots. In fact, these dots may be so faint you can't see them, especially if it's zoomed in like this. And then I'll zoom it back out so you can see the whole paper, the whole page. So I have 2 dots in the corner, and I want to make this 8 inches long or so. That ought to be about right. I'll try to make this perpendicular to the line that was generated there. In fact, it has to be. I'll put a light line there, about 8 inches, and really I don't care where the end is. I just want it to be long enough. And then the other side, this line is critical. It has to be parallel. We could, if we wanted to put a little bit of perspective, we could make it a little bit narrower, but we're going to make it square. There we are. So we have the 2 ends. Now, the hard part for me anyway, is to put the oval. I know, or the oval for the end of the eraser. I know that if I can mark a center here for that oval. I know that oval, at least from my orientation, I'm looking at it on my pencil, it's about that wide on this side, and it's bound to be the same on the other side. So the ovals of the eraser, the end of the eraser, fits in an oval like this. I also know that the end here is flat. I have to remember that, actually force myself to remember that. And then I also know that when I draw this oval, at least the way my hand works, I draw better this way. It's hard for me to draw a smooth oval or a smooth curved line in that direction. So I'm going to actually set this paper up in a place that allows me to draw this oval where I think I'll be able to do it the best. Well, I've sketched in a few more dots here just to give me something to plan for, and I'll try to draw the one nice even line. And on the other side, I'll do the same. Now, one of the techniques I like to use, and this is my personal observation, is when I need to draw something freehand like this, I try to imagine what the result is going to look like, and then I simply trace what I've imagined. Now again, these ends aren't supposed to be quite so flat, so I'll round that a little bit, pull it out. I don't want to put too much pencil here because I don't want it to become too dark. So we'll just leave that for now. Now, the metal part, the next metal ring is, see, this eraser is about 2/3 the width. So about 2/3 the width is there. That's his depth. So right around there. This is the back side of that. So which means I had this is about that far in for the front. So I'll make it perpendicular. So this is the front of the curve, and I should be able to make a curve. Now that's going to be the edge of the metal, the front edge of the metal. I'm going to put a couple more lines here. I'll just trace them. If that's my curve, that's where the flare is for this metal. And now I need to put the rest of these curves. And again, I'm going to turn this around because my hand likes to draw in this direction and add the rest of the lines. And for me, I'll just turn my model around too. So I think I have one more there, and then there's a wide spot in the metal. There's crimping on either side, one crimping to hold this metal onto the pencil, onto the wood, and the other crimp, these little holes, are to hold the eraser on. Did you know that's what those two ends are for, with those two little, or all the little holes that go all the way around, that the purpose is to actually hold the ends together? Well, now you know something new. So that width is about half the width of my eraser. Or, no, this would be 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. So, and I'm just going to approximate. So it looks like one edge is there, and the top edge is probably there. I want to keep those. Now, did you notice? Well, I'll put this one in first, then we'll talk about the other. I'll use my ruler again. I'll just kind of lay it in. Again, this line is light. I want to be able to see it and find it, and I want you to be able to see it, so I'll slide it up. This other line up here actually has to be even lighter. In fact, almost wispy not there, because that corner, that curve, that's getting a reflection off the lights that are here. And so that actually is white. So that needs to be almost not drawn. Just there. In fact, I may even use an eraser to get rid of that. I just need to know where it's at. Okay? So far, so good. We're just about ready to start shading things in. The only other thing I might want to do is place a couple of these pressed places in. That was Jasper. He's assisting me today. And since the machine made this, I can be pretty confident that these will line up. In fact, it's almost as if these center. Where's the number 2? There it is. On the edge and just past the edge. I think we did that. Okay? So far, so good. Now, we'll start to shade. In putting the shade and shadow, I know that this is the bottom edge. I'm going to make it darker. And as I pull this up, I run it about the same shade. I know that right around here it's going to get lighter. And actually, I want to draw with my lightest shade possible. I'll even hold my pencil differently. I'll hold my pencil with my fingertips, holding it flat, and letting my whole hand move from side to side. And back to the other side. Now it's easy to put a single coat on, so to speak, and then go back and add another to make it darker where necessary. What's hard to do is to go from light to dark. I like to make it kind of even and just add more to the darker area. Okay, so far so good. I'll leave that there for now, and we'll work on the end. And just as I mentioned before, it's easier for me to draw curves in this direction, so I'm going to pull this around. Now this is actually rounded, and if you look at this pencil and or you look at this eraser's picture, there is no line. So let's continue. We'll shade this in, shading the bottom, and that's where the least amount of light is. My pencil is a little bit rounded. I can push these edges past that line or up to that line. That looks like it's going to be all right. Now the darkness of this bottom edge doesn't have to be, or the shade of this bottom edge doesn't have to be as dark as this side. It just depends where the light is. So pull that around. There we are. Enough there. Now let's continue up the pencil. Notice that this bottom side is darker. Again, we're not worried about the reflection. And it is true, this paper does reflect light onto that bottom side. If this were laying on a black mat, that would be much darker. In fact, we're going to assume a little bit that this is darker because it is out of the light. If it wasn't for the paper, that wouldn't be so bright. This one will be about a half shade, and this will be light and just slightly gradient up to the top where this highlight is. Okay, so let's start that. Again, we'll start from the dark part. It's pretty uniform. Bring it up using the flat edge of my pencil. I'm also not worried if I cross the line. As long as I can kind of see it there, that's okay. Because I'm going to go back with a eraser and a ruler. I'll set my ruler right along that edge, and I'll take my eraser and I'll erase right along that edge, and I'll have a nice crisp edge. So I'll put my pencil tip there. There's my line. Now maybe I'll come back and add much more color to this. And this does roll over slightly. In other words, this is a rounded feature. It's not a crisp line. And we talked about this centerpiece being much lighter. And as the reflection is farther away, it kind of comes up. And the highlights are on this curve up above, or the rounded edge. Right about there. That needs to be somewhat uniform. And this side is a bit darker because of the angle of the light that's available. Now, I've left the hardest for last, and that is that shine. Well, I can find out where it's at by looking at the picture that's here. And it looks like it goes just above, if this is the center line, the bottom edge of the highlight, where the light is blown out. That means the white is so bright it's as white as it can get. Where that's at is just above that space. So we can shade from there. And one of the things I learned about this is that since this is a reflected surface, you can do almost anything here and it'll be right. Just be consistent. Now, I can probably, if I get my eraser, erase a few lines across here, actually in this direction. I can use a gummy eraser or the point of a white eraser and just pull some clear lines as I erase to make it look like the ridges of the metal. I'll zoom back out. So our pencil so far, and need to add the number 2 down here. Might as well orient it in the way I can see it. Here's my sample, and it's centered down here. Looks like it's got a nice rounded top, a straight line, and it goes across the bottom. Give it a little bit of thickness by chasing that line. Try to be consistent. And I think I'll stop there. The only thing left is to erase some lines in here. When I find my eraser, I'll do that.